God, get blamed for everything.
We were so worried about you, Jerry.
You missed Morty mating with an octopus.
It'll probably happen again.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 8 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references. It was basically a Jerry episode. It wasn't a Rick and Jerry episode, which they have done many times in the past. It was just a pure Jerry episode. There were even some very, very deep-cut references to early stuff on the show, I think just to reward people that have been watching since Season 1. This episode was titled Nomortland, a reference to the Frances McDormand movie Nomadland. During that movie, her character leaves her home to drift around the United States in her van as a nomad, and a number of real-life nomads appear as fictionalized versions of themselves throughout the film. And this whole episode deals with a lot of nomad Jerrys, in even a Citadel of Jerrys type of situation. Sort of like the bottom-of-the-barrel version of a Citadel of Ricks. There have been so many theories about there being a Citadel of Summers or like Citadel of other characters, Citadel of Beths out there somewhere from previous episodes. I've never actually thought about there being a Citadel of Jerrys. The closer reference, I think, would be to the Jerryboree daycare, where all the Jerrys were bundled together, and some of them actually got left there and had banded together as an actual team and were just living at the Jerryboree. This evil band of Jerrys was a little bit closer to that kind of energy, but it wasn't that same group. They start the cold open with the alternate Jerry called Mooch Jerry eating the cereal, their cracklin' nut grapes, which is reference to grape nuts, which is not a great tasting cereal if you've had it. Maybe there are a couple people out there that like grape nuts. He's got the 5 o'clock shadow, setting up the twist where we find out later in the episode that his original universe, everybody in that dimension, has 5 o'clock shadows. Space Beth is making up excuses why she doesn't want to hang out with Rick. Earth Beth here doesn't clock that it's a different Jerry because he's so insignificant, which is a running gag throughout the entire episode. Main Jerry here, though, does, chases him, love that he doubles back to grab his cereal and finish it hurriedly while he's still trying to escape. Then demands that he buy him lunch or breakfast too before he explains what's going on, why he's in this dimension. Breakfast too also feels like a Hobbit Lord of the Rings second breakfast reference. Like, what about second breakfast? Jerry is kind of a hobbit, if you think about it. They go to the mall. It's been a while since we've actually been to the mall on the show, but we have been there previously. Jerry jokes about loving this place, the mall itself, because Rick hates it, but also isn't sure if that's why Rick started hating it in the first place. Like, maybe it's because I've been here so much that he started hating it. He's about to get a job in this universe at the American Eagle store, and the Mooch Jerry starts referring to him as Eagle Man Jerry, which might be a callback to Rick's tattoo of himself and another character that looks a lot like Jerry more than it does like Morty, made to look like eagles. When he says the road provides, it just sets up more of the alternate Jerrys being dimensional nomads. Like, it's a very common thing in the multiverse with Jerrys just being nomads running around. When they joke about him possibly being from the future here to replace him, it's just more time travel tropes that Rick and Morty mostly tries to avoid, but they have done time travel episodes previously. Like, they've already broken their time travel rule. There's a reference to that later in the episode with the Snake Jazz poster in Summer's room. When he says he doesn't use stolen portal guns is the main way to get around, that's because it brings the heat. I think he was referring mostly to the Citadel of Ricks and Ricks just in general. Normally the Citadel would police that. Maybe this Jerry doesn't know that the Citadel was destroyed, but just in general, it seems like all the Jerrys here are afraid of most of the Ricks, except for the ones that they're able to bend to their will, like the addict Rick later in the episode. There's also characters like Simple Rick out in the multiverse. So like, there are versions of Rick out there that Jerrys are able to either befriend in really strong ways or control if they're addicts.
That cool jacket changed you, Jerry.
This was actually part of the whole concept of the central finite curve in the Citadel of Ricks when Rick originally created or helped create it. The idea that the central finite curve was just a subset of the most powerful, strongest versions of Rick. In the crazier, more dangerous Ricks were outside of the central finite curve. Mooch Jerry says that he's been slipping through cracks in the multiverse and he's currently been living in Jerry's closet, but that's just mostly a reference to him getting to this dimension through the rift in the closet. There's a joke about them sneaking back home and Rick spotting them, putting the frozen alien inside the fridge. We never find out what happens to this alien. Like, he just keeps aliens trapped all over the place, his underground basement lair. They're all over the house. They briefly make small talk with the joke about the yak piss and the Naked and Afraid show, setting up the post-credit scene, which they wind up bonding over. They kind of tease that during this, where Rick reveals that he is also watching the show, but by the post-credit scene, you find out that he's also a super fan, and they're like two friends in the show. Like, the show is their point of bonding now. If it wasn't clear, they've gotten into this in previous episodes, particularly the Rick and Jerry episodes. Rick really does care about Jerry and the rest of the family, but also Jerry, even though he doesn't sound like it all the time. Mooch Jerry explains that in some other dimensions, Beth gives Jerry a TARDIS-style closet that's bigger on the inside, and Beth has been asking for one in this dimension, the Parmesan dimension. They would actually have to get that from Rick. In all the cracks, the back doors through the multiverse that the Jerry Nomads have been using are a result of all of Rick's many experiments, so most of the cracks are in and around the house, but not always in every dimension. Like the crack that Mooch Jerry originally used in his universe was inside Morty's high school, making it sound like in that dimension Rick did something crazy inside the barn at some point at the high school. When they use the closet to travel to another dimension, then slowly stumble through the coats into the other reality, it's a Chronicles of Narnia reference. Like, this is what it actually looks like in the Chronicles of Narnia when they're traveling through the wardrobe to Narnia. Supposedly, Greta Gerwig in real life is doing a live-action reboot Narnia movie for Netflix. Who knows when that's going to come out, though? But at some point, they will do another Narnia franchise. The coasters on the nightstand are the markers that the Jerrys leave each other to let them know whether or not a particular reality is safe for them, which they also use for a joke at the end of the episode when main Jerry, Eagle Man Jerry's arc, goes completely 360 and he totally changes his mind at the last minute. Like, nope, you know what, I'm not cool with this. This first dimension they go to winds up being one where they all talk in blahs, with the joke that Jerry understands the blahs. It also kind of feels like a Peanuts joke where the parents in the Peanuts TV show and movies all talk in mumbly words that you can't actually understand. Their next crack is in the bathroom mirror next to the Snuffles or Snowballs picture, whichever you want to call him. He says he almost lost a finger in this other new dimension because of frostbite, and he's left spare coats near the crack for himself or any other Jerry Nomads that come through this place. Based on the twist here, it feels like there was a new Ice Age-like accident where the entire planet was covered in ice and frost so quickly that it killed the whole family because they're all huddled together like it happened really suddenly. Notice there is no Rick here, so I'm assuming that Rick did something to cause this Ice Age. He shows them the trail of memorial artifacts that different Nomad Jerrys have left on their way through to remember this family, each one representing another version of Jerry that's been through here. Eagle Man Jerry leaves a piece of the other Jerry's shirt as a memorial, like he adds his shirt to the memorial. They travel to a yarn dimension where everything is made of yarn. The tree even unravels and is destroyed when he yanks on it a little bit. They travel through another crack in the fridge. The Nomad Jerrys leave a shrinking ray gun in this dimension, use it to travel through the walls on the rat, also setting up the bit later in the episode when they make the rat larger.
The mouse is gonna be okay.
And we get another payoff on another intro scene, with this dimension being the one where everybody are turned into goat people. There are only 2 more episodes left, so we'll see if there are any more intro scenes in the last 2 episodes. Then the next crack is in his office through the recliner, and this next dimension is just a giant Burning Man Woodstock festival reality where everybody's just partying it up like a bunch of hippies. Like the whole family look like hippies in this dimension. There are even a bunch of aliens partying with them, and nobody thinks that it's weird. Then in the next universe, another version of Jerry is singing the Rusted Root Send Me On My Way song they play over this whole montage of them hopping dimensions, swimming in the ocean, and I think this dimension, just based on the family's house being on the island, feels like a Dragon Ball Kame house reference. Rick yelling about margaritas also feels like a Margaritaville Jimmy Buffett reference, like he's got a souped-up science-enhanced margarita machine. Portal fluid margaritas. Then Mooch Jerry takes him to a dimension where Rick turned the moon into a disco ball Death Star for Morty's winter formal dance, and it's been destroying the planet. It feels like a Star Wars Death Star reference with all the super lasers, but more specifically, I think a reference to the Star Killer base, which was just a larger Death Star with multiple super lasers. Eagle Man Jerry then tells him his origin, that he himself didn't come from the dimension that the other Jerry found him in. That's a callback to the Jerryboree episode way back in season 2, that he was the wrong Jerry that they just took home with them at the end of that episode. Then at a certain point in later seasons, the whole family had to jump to another reality. When he says he also turned himself into a bug, then everybody had sex with each other, that was a season 6 callback. He reveals that he keeps a hidden 12-pack in the bathroom for shower beers. This also sets the idea with the pin code, like all Jerrys across the multiverse do things in a very similar way. Like they all have 12-packs in their bathrooms. They all use the same pin code on their ATMs. They almost run into a Rick and Morty who are getting late-night tacos in this dimension. Taco La Taco just feels like a Taco Bell or a Del Taco reference, making it sound like they did something weird to a cat, too, because they're talking about cat-related stuff, like maybe there's a cat meat taco situation. They were going to try and piggyback on this portal to get to the other universe, but saying that there is a gene in this universe where they're trapped that they can stay with for a while, and he even has cots in his basement. Also feels like a callback to the Season 8 episode recently where Gene was totally cool with all the craziness and alternate dimensions and the young versions of Beth. Like, he knew exactly what was going on instantly. Like, I see, you just turned yourselves into young versions of yourselves. Just the idea that there's way more going on with Gene than the show has led on. Like, they've hinted at that in previous seasons. Like, he's not just the punching bag joke for the show to make fun of occasionally. Maybe this is them slowly teasing that in a future season, like season 11 or season 12, there will be like a Gene episode all about Gene's character. Mooch says their only backup route home is through Grand Central, which is like a nexus of realities, putting them in the path of the Bandana Jerry gang. He explains that the Nexus was created when a couple Mortys accidentally created it when they were using a bag of holding, a TARDIS-like bag, like bigger on the inside, to pull out a keg of beer, and it went wrong, connecting a couple different realities. That is what they're crawling through here. They're crawling through the bag of holding, connecting the different dimensions. When he says it's a toll road now, that's because the gang of Jerrys tax anybody who uses it, which they then use to reveal the whole Citadel of Jerry situation. Like I said, it's kind of a discount, bottom-of-the-barrel Citadel of Rick's situation. Or maybe better, the group of Jerrys who had banded together at the Jerryboree episode. He explains that they're mostly comprised of Jerrys whose families have died in adventures, leaving them alone, so they come here to join and survive, which is kind of the way things went down during the Jerryboree episode. Those Jerrys were ones that their versions of Rick had forgotten about or died on adventures and didn't come back to pick up, and they just never left the Jerryboree.
They live here now.
You notice they have a Rick who's a drug addict smoking portal crystals. This feels like a callback to the addict Rick from the Citadel of Rick's episode in season 3 that was also being controlled by those Mortys, and they were just using them for similar reasons for their technology in their portal fluid. When they reveal the other Jerry's name is Mooch, I feel like it's a reference to the money that he mooches off all the other Jerrys. Like when he empties his bag, it's just full of rolls of money from other dimensions where they stole money from those Jerry's ATMs. When they mention the Tundra line has been closed because a Rick in another universe destroyed that crack, I think the idea is it's called Tundra line as in cold because the line is inside the fridge, like that's the entrance. Boss Jerry then has this Rick prevent them from using the cracks again by trapping them in Mooch's original dimension. And the really big reveal here is also a bit of a callback to season 2 with that version of Beth who had divorced from that Jerry and remarried to Paul. Probably one of the bigger twists of the episode, though, is that Eagle Man Jerry calls out this Mooch Jerry as the worst, most pathetic Jerry in the multiverse. So how do you make Jerry, or character like Jerry, seem cool? You introduce a more pathetic, a worse version of Jerry. Like we always talk about the more dangerous version of Morty, like Evil Morty is an even worse version of Morty, or like Prime Rick is a more evil version, a smarter version of Rick, technically, till he was able to actually kill him. But when you talk about Jerry eventually, instead of him becoming more hardcore, like most hardcore Jerry, you actually talk about him becoming more pathetic. But the real big joke here is that when he forces them to go back to his house here, Paul winds up being super cool with both of the Jerrys being here, even the original Jerry who abandoned his family. And his family is actually happy to see him, even though they're kind of upset about him leaving. They all have 5 o'clock shadows too in this dimension, like everybody has 5 o'clock shadows. His family calls him out for bailing on them a long time ago. Eagle Man Jerry helps them heal their wounds and bond a little bit again. And then this Rick sends Eagle Man Jerry home with the other Rick, who's just going to continue being a nomad on his way. There's a little bit of a joke about him not remembering where he actually came from, like Parmesan. We say it weird in my dimension. Is that a way to find it? That's also meant to be a callback to the Morty's Mind Blowers episode where Morty makes fun of Rick for saying it weird. Like, why are you saying it weird? It's Parmesan, not Parmesan. What wound up happening, though, is that in the later seasons, when the whole family had to jump to another dimension after their dimension was destroyed, they just started calling it the Parmesan dimension. Just because they revealed in the new dimension the family traveled to, everybody said Parmesan in that weird way. Also vindicating Rick from the previous episode. Like, haha, see, they do say it the way that I say it in this universe. Then they start the reverse montage with the same Rusted Roots song, trying to trick the Jerrys with their bandanas. This one is reading a version of Fight Club, which feels like a reference to the gang from Fight Club that forms, and the big twist of the fake Mindspace Tyler Durden. On the board of blacklisted Jerrys, you see one of them is a fish person Jerry. The couch crack is just a joke to losing your remote in your couch cushions. Then they travel through a Picasso dimension where everything is an impressionist painting. They pass by a Snake music poster in Summer's bedroom, a callback to the Snake Jazz from the Time Traveling Snakes episode. And then the next dimension seems like an I Love Lucy episode parody, I think, with Beth baking in the oven. Jerry is also watching a Naked and Afraid episode, further paying off the bit from earlier where Jerry and Rick are bonding over Naked and Afraid, and then the post-credit scene where they're actually watching it together while being naked. They go back to the Kame House dimension, then the Yarn dimension, and then use the portal of another Rick who's going to another dimension to get pizza. They also did this bit in a previous episode where they go to another dimension to get pizza.
Arnaldo's isn't closed in the dimension where they didn't invent daylight savings!
They go back to the Burning Man Woodstock dimension, then they go to the Goat dimension to get the shrinking ray gun to enlarge the mouse and use that to get back to their original dimension, the Parmesan dimension. When he starts talking about Andre the Giant and big dogs, that is a reference to the idea that the human body, even dogs' bodies, can only sustain a certain level of growth before the mass of your body just becomes too much for your heart to work correctly. So usually people who do have a form of gigantism die much sooner due to complications from that. So yes, the giant rat is probably going to die pretty soon after this. Boss Jerry then winds up inadvertently killing himself when he destroys the interdimensional bag trail, just getting sucked into a void of the multiverse. And when he says he tries not to think about the bad things, it's also a callback to Morty's mind blowers, Jerry's mind blowers. Mooch Jerry then takes off on the road to another dimension just to continue on the trail, like I'm just going to stay on the road, do my thing. Main Jerry, happy to find that his family actually did miss him. While he was gone, they had their own adventure. Morty mated with an octopus for some reason, which he seems very happy about, like he seems to enjoy himself and expects to do it again, like, oh, I'm probably going to do this again pretty soon. Just ask Morty Jr., who they're actually bringing back in next week's episode 9. Maybe that's why they had this joke here, just to make you remember the circumstances that led to the creation of Morty Jr. Morty really liking having sex with stuff. They make a joke about Jerry jerking it, and then he flips the coaster to let Jerry's in this dimension know that it's safe for other Jerrys. Like, he's done this 180 character route where he's like, oh, I'm cool with other Jerrys doing this. This is actually pretty nice. But then Rick clocks him, and they have a funny moment where he actually changes his mind because this Rick is like, you know what? It actually might do you some good to go on the road, revealing that this C137 Rick knows all about the Nomad Jerrys, and he's totally cool with it. But this Jerry then completely changes his mind, does a 360 character return, so he's back where he was at the beginning of the episode, where he was not cool with the other Jerry showing up. This is also probably a reference to them not doing this trope again, like we're not going to do this type of Jerry episode again. There were no special guest stars in the credits this week, so I don't think there were any in the actual episode, but the post-credit scene is paying off that Naked and Afraid joke that Jerry and Rick were talking about with the guy who liked the yak piss. He was the same guy that the other Jerry in the middle of the episode was watching on TV, like watching the same type of episode. They revealed that Rick is watching the episode while naked, very excitedly, with Jerry, and they're both bonding over it. The culture of the show is to watch naked, so like, this is now their thing that they just do together on the regular. If there are any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. Overall, I felt like kind of the middle of the pack, like it was an okay episode, but also not the best Jerry or Rick and Jerry episode. Like most of the Rick and Jerry episodes tend to be a little bit stronger. There aren't that many just Jerry episodes in particular, and that's for a reason. Usually when the show does stuff like this though, like they do only a Jerry episode or only a Beth's episode, is because they want to give the other cast members in real life a break. Like you get this week off because you don't need to be in the episode that much. Big reminder that there are only 2 episodes left. My episode 9 video will post next week after they release it. We're kind of in the middle of the Superman Fantastic Four corridor right now, so I'm working on a bunch of videos for those as well, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. Everybody click here for my Superman alternate ending video, deleted scenes, all my other Superman videos, and click here for my new Avengers Doomsday first look. Thank you so much.